to Margo show. Today we have our guest, Aleksandr Vishnevetskiy. He's a writer, he's a poet, and he's an artist. And now he's going to talk about art, about poetry, about his book. Okay, Aleksandr?
Hello. Actually, probably I'll start from my background. It's kind of not easy way to become artist. Actually, big transformation. My education, I was born, first of all, in Kiev, a beautiful city. I love it very much. But for the last 25 years, I live here, became American citizen, and became free. Immigration was not easy. I graduated Structural Institute, became PhD, did second level of PhD, and in 1999 left Ukraine with my family, wife, beautiful wife, and two beautiful children, daughters. First 10 years were very difficult. I was lucky to start work like after 2 months, and I worked for a small company for 3 years. After 3 years, I worked for a known company, AT&T, as consultant for 2 years, and then was JP Morgan for 3 years, you name it, New York Stock Exchange last 17 years. Currently, I'm retired, and I can dedicate myself fully to my hobby, actually new profession, I would say. Working for big companies, financial companies, I was doing software development, actually, and before September 11, prior like 2 years, I got feeling that I settled down. I kind of a little bit relaxed more, and I started to do some artwork, writing, and step by step, you know, became more serious in this business. Artwork, first steps were like drawings, like quite complicated, but not really, you know, in colors works. And that day, September 11, I was on the last train to go to work, on last pass train. And it was 9:05. I got out of first building. It was in fire already. It kind of, you know, definitely went through some stress, you know, like I was a survivor, but actually I survived, thank God. And after that, the company was closed for 1 week. You know, this is kind of very...
Lucky you, you have
yeah,
a little vacation.
I was lucky. Company was closed, you know, like I was free for 1 week. And under stress, I went down to my basement and started to do my first 2 paintings, you know, like, and for a week I did it, you know, I finished 2 paintings. It was like early works, you know, like, but it was big beginning, you know, like, and then, you know, then like year by year, you know, it was more serious. I was changing my style. I was looking for my way in this complicated business art. And here we are. Here we are.
You remember where you had your first show, like you told me it was a first show, Center Park West, beautiful gallery.
Sure.
Yeah, and you was very happy because it was great success. That was first time that you really had an exhibition.
Sure, definitely I remember. First of all, it was a very beautiful gallery.
Very beautiful
Second
gallery.
of all, thank you, Margo. You my first promoter. You know, you kind of opened doors for me, you know, on this beautiful, you know, highway, art highway. And I enjoyed that show very much. It was really important, you know, I got to enough space, you know, like to put my probably, and I know, 8, 9, you know, like artworks, and it was great beginning actually, you know, like first floor, a lot of windows, people were passing by, you know, like look at my and other artists, you know, like, and it was international, by the way. It was guy from France, you know, like Rudik Petrosyan came by. It was Gorbachev there, you know,
but
like
not the Gorbachev, not the president of Russia. It's
Yuri Gorbachev,
another artist.
You
were very excited about this.
We spent a few days, you know, there. Like it was first success, I would say, you know.
So where are you going to exhibit now? What is another exhibition that's coming up?
Right now. First of all, you know, there's a very beautiful website, elegantnewyork.com. I love it because I published there like a few like 10, 11 short stories working with Tatiana Bardina. And it was beginning of, you know, like sort of mutual work. And months ago, Tatiana actually sent me email. He invited me to participate in the show. 10 artists, design show, some jewelries, and actually this is not first one for elegantnewyork.com. And I was there, like I like it, and I mentioned actually I'd like to participate for next one. And here we are, April 12th. 548 West 26th Street, Chelsea, on the 3rd floor. Coming.
But you also
Thursday.
participate last year in International Art Festival. Right?
At Chelsea, and
Chelsea.
You were organizer of this.
I was a curator there.
Curator of that show. It was very successful. So actually we've been doing like, I don't know how many shows already, you know, like sort of went through 5, 6 maybe. It was, I don't know, almost every year, you know. And I told you, you know, like I got more free time, you know, like I retired. And finally, I can dedicate myself fully to my work, you know, like art, poetry, and prose, actually. You know, I just recently finished the prose. Unfortunately, this is in Russian, but only in Russian.
This is in English?
This is in Russian. I'm looking for a good translator, because this is not only prose, like 99%, but also some my poetry. And when some translator can see, you know, like Russian plus poetry, gives up right away, you know. But still, you know, I'm looking for the right person to translate it. Sounds of Future. This is like second book. First one, this is Sounds of Art. And they're kind of sequential, but at the same time completely different. This is more sure, like about famous artists. I put them out of time, out of space, you know, like, and put them on sure train, you know, like they can communicate with me, with each other, and they can work standing, you know, behind windows, you know, looking outside. And Van Gogh again, Matisse, you know, like, and I don't know, abstract and abstract expressionist, you know, even down to Peggy Guggenheim. And I'm doing the interview with Peggy Guggenheim at the end of the book, you know, asking her different questions about her private life. She was actually a very open lady, you know.
When was it?
When was it? You mean like when it was? Peggy lived like 80s, maybe, you know, like if I'm not mistaken, she spent last years in Venice. She settled down in Venice. She brought in like 300 paintings, 300 paintings of modern and postmodern artists. And she was looking for some space, castle, you know, to buy and set up.
We have to go to the break. We will be right back. Welcome back. This is Margo show, and our guest today, Aleksandr Vishnevetskiy, and he's going to continue to talk about his life and his art and his poetry and his another thing that happened in his life. Okay. Let me ask you.
Sure, please.
You spent 17 years, I don't know what it is, but it looks like a high-tech something like high-tech. So what are you going to do now without this interesting business? Just to write, just to make art? And what about money? I don't think that you can make a lot of money on writing, on art, but nobody knows. Maybe you're going to be big.
I'm trying not to think about this. Actually, I spent in IT almost 40 years in '76. And prior 2 years, I was in Mongolia. You know, serving Soviet army, and it was very tough and very good experience, actually. You know, like in the middle of nowhere, 2 years trying to. But I was a Russian officer. It was a little bit easier than soldier. And but it was a good experience, actually, life experience, and probably it made even immigration easier for me. When we decided with my wife to go, you know, to United States, I said, like, don't worry, I went through Mongolia, I'm gonna go through, you know, like, immigration as well, and it looks like it happened, you know, like, yes, but. I spent a lot of time, a little bit tired, you know, from computer science work. It was a great adventure, you know, like 2 lives. First part I spent in Ukraine, as I mentioned, you know, like second life here in the United States, big experience with big companies, you know, like, but probably I was smart enough to start to look something exciting, you know, like, and I found, you know, my art, I found, you know, like poetry, prose, and that's why, you know, transformation from, you know, professional work, IT work, to professional work of artists, you know, like, kind of, I think went through very smoothly, you know, like, and I love it. I love this stage. Money. I made enough money to not to think about this for a living, for me and especially for my wife.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic.
So she kind of a little bit hesitated, but I said, like, don't worry. Most likely, maybe, you know, like, if I won't start to sell my works, you know, like, but not considering to sell my works, will be, I hope will be fine. Who knows? Never say never, but I don't know. Just for now, I can dedicate myself fully, you know, like, to this. Anyway, a few years ago, we did beautiful catalog with Volodya Andreev. He is great publisher. He did very great and beautiful work. And actually, this is my catalog with 70 works and actually poetry translated in English. Two translators, John Hall and Robert. Famous name Rothschild. Famous name Rothschild. Rothschild, right, yeah. And 7-8 people worked on this big book, you know, like, and they kind of for 7-8 months, and it was beautiful, tough work, and thanks God, you know, finished successfully, you know, like, I kind of definitely spent money on it, you know, like, but then, you know, like, I wrote this Sounds of Art book I started to talk about, and I started, actually, I asked myself, you know, like, what kind of people I'm going to bring in on the pages of this book, you know, like. And this is not only famous artists, there are a lot of famous artists, but artists who can express their thoughts, you know, like, who left letters, books, you know, like, let's say Gauguin, you know, like, he has a bunch of letters. I started to go through them and study them, you know, study his thoughts, you know, comparison parallels with prior artists like Delacroix, and then you know, like, No, for a famous book with this, you know, like, his you know, like, trip to Tahiti, and he lived there a number of years. He went through back and forth, you know, to Paris with exhibition, which was not successful, and then he came back. He died there, you know, like. Very surprisingly, you know, like, this story, you know, like, Matisse knew about this adventure, you know, like, he went there. He went there to, in some kind of, you know, stage when he kind of looking for new emotions, new kind of excitement, and he changes in his career, and he went there to find and to see what Gauguin saw, you know. He saw bright colors, you know, like forests, you know, everything, whatever Gauguin saw. He was very excited and came back and started to work. Matisse, actually, you know, like, I opened before this book, I even didn't like him, you know, like, to be honest, you know, like, but reading, you know, like, his letters, you know, books about him, conversations with famous people, you know, like, I understood more about, you know, famous Matisse, you know, like. He had son who worked here in New York. He had gallery. And what happened, actually, he married, you know, like, girl from Corsica, But in 1 year he found out that this is not his, like kind of lady, he'd like to spend life with. But her husband was kind of a little mafia, as far as I remember, the guy. Like Matisse was afraid of him, he probably, he thought maybe he's gonna kill him. And that guy, went to, he sent, to New York, his son. And he started to do art business, and he sold a lot of, he became like art dealer, very famous, sold works of Matisse and other, artists. So this is quite interesting story. I learned this writing this book. But I'd like to talk about second one book, Sounds of the Future. This is more important.
In English?
In Russian. I'm looking for a translator. So this book actually more serious, and after every visit of like big show like Art Expo, Frieze, whatever we can see here, Miami show, I didn't like art. I saw it, like I was very disappointed. Maybe I'm not so modern, whatever, but still, like I understand, like art. I think, I learned a lot, and I was very, very disappointed. I asked myself, what's going on? Why I can see what I can see, like whatever. And I started to do some research, and this is a result of my research. So. I went back to philosophy of beauty, philosophy of freedom, philosophy of postmodernism.
We have to go to the break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Margo show. Our guest today, Aleksandr Vishnevetskiy, and I want to ask you a few questions about your art. Can you tell us what do you think about your art? What kind of media is this? Is it abstract? Is it figurative art? How you describe your art?
Actually, I think I found a lot of components of my direction, I'm going to, and this is, I think this is different from whatever I can see around. I'm using thick colors, like very bright colors, very thick and rich texture, a lot of gold, different kind of gold, but gold, I'm trying to use it like a regular color, a mixture with other colors, and it brings you some special effects. But at the same time, I'm working in kind of a stained glass style. So I think, like sort of, I'm trying to replicate this technique on canvas, on wood, but mixing different colors with gold to get like cover shining, because stained glass actually coming through glass, like light. Here this is light should come from canvas itself, and this is kind of very close to methods like Russian icons have, like where Rublev, let's say, and other famous guys, like from ancient, era. By the way, Matisse was very surprised when he came to Russia actually to see it. Meanwhile, I had a dream, like, and the dream is some kind of, like, word came around flying in my mind, like extrematism, and when I woke up, I started to look at on internet. I did not find it, extrematism, and actually I understood, like it's kind of it fits, like whatever I'm doing, like I'm using, extreme amount of, like paint, I'm working on acrylic itself. I'm trying to get, 3D effects, like on wood, on canvases.
Okay. Please come back next week. This is Margo Show. Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing me in, like thank you for having me here.